Okay, hello everyone. My name is Mariah Bruner and I'm UCA's Wellness Coordinator and I serve faculty and staff. Thank you for joining us today for our BeWell education session. This webinar will wrap up by 12:30. We want to respect your time. And at the end of the session, I will share the process for claiming your 5 lifestyle reward points. And today, I'm delighted to have Kendis Chenoweth back with us again to present on the topic of framing our new normal. Kendis works in UCA's Division of Outreach and Community Engagement. She is a certified life coach with an emphasis on wellness. And she shared with me that she's passionate about helping people discover and live the best version of themselves. So with that, welcome back, Kendis, and I will hand it over to you.
You guys, thank you so much for joining me again on yet another topic of newness that we've not ever had to explore before, but we're going to talk today on framing our new normal. And the things we're going to cover, let me get to that. All right, so what we're going to cover today are just a few learning objectives for us, but just as we go through things, we're going to do a little bit of a gut check. We're going to identify some positive habits that we actually created during this strange at-home transition and what we want to take with us. We're also going to create a strategy for our next transition, and I'll talk a lot about that. And then at the very end, I've got some resources that you guys are welcome to check out. And even if you've got some, this is going to be very interactive, so I would love to hear the things that have helped you and some resources that you would actually want everybody to know about. Okay, so let's get started. How many of you guys out there are NASCAR fans? You can unmute, you can share in the chats, whatever, but anybody out there NASCAR fans? So, you got a few? A few NASCAR fans?
Yes.
Nice.
Cynthia
nice.
Burleson.
There you go. I need you guys to give me grace. I am not a NASCAR fan, but the analogy is fabulous. So if I mess up on any of these things, just kind of correct or just overlook. But, so real quick, what's a NASCAR driver's favorite song to sing to other drivers during a race? Blue Bayou. Okay, but I'll finish with that's the last joke I'll even attempt, but we're going to talk today, and this actually started out with Mariah and I talking about this whole transition from at home to on-site work, and I told her about a podcast that I had listened to, and the presenter gave this analogy of a NASCAR race, and how it kind of correlates with you and me and what we've been experiencing. So if you think about a NASCAR race, the drivers are going about 200 miles an hour. And sometimes they're just inches away from the wall or from other cars. And as things happen and there's actually driver mistakes made, there happens to be at times pileups. And you and I can kind of understand or remember back when we were in our race, we were kind of in the rat race. Maybe we weren't quite going 200 miles an hour, but maybe sometimes it felt like it. And then all of a sudden, bam, the COVID crash happened. And we found ourselves in this massive pileup. So what happens in NASCAR when that occurs is they immediately stop the race. That's what we experienced. I remember my head was just trying to just grapple with the fact of, oh my word, wow, I was going along, and then last Monday at this time, I was at work doing ... And then today, just that massive push on pause that happened to us. So when a NASCAR race that happens and the pileup happens, they immediately stop the race. We experienced immediately stopping the rat race. And then what happens next is that the race officials start clearing out the debris. You guys, that's been kind of the past couple months for us. They're trying, people are trying to make heads and tails of everything going on. And, governments are putting in directives, and UCA and workplaces are trying to figure out how to get things back going. And everything's been trying to clean up after this pileup. And so as we're going to talk today a little bit about just how life has been the analogy of a NASCAR race. We're going to also talk about what I'm going to focus on is the idea of a rolling start. So as we get going, again, it's very interactive. I'd love to hear your perspectives, but I also want you and me to give ourselves grace because we have never done this before. This will be something completely new. And so I heard Charlotte Strickland share yesterday in the Zoom meeting with the counseling service that they did. And she said, we just have to realize that we're all in the same storm. None of us have ever been in this storm before, and we're all in different boats. So while our boats look different compared to other people, we're all just trying to navigate this. So as we look at transitioning from at home and that routine to now moving back to on-site work, we're all just trying to navigate this. So let's give ourselves a lot of grace with it. Okay, so we're back at the NASCAR race. They had this huge pile up. They're cleaning off the track. And what happens, what they found with NASCAR is that after a huge pile up and the drivers get back on the track, it was very dangerous for them to go from 0 to 200 immediately. In fact, some things happened when they tried to go from a dead stop to racing right away. And the first thing that would happen that they found was the engines would literally just blow up. They weren't ready to take that kind of speed. And there was a lot of problems with just the car itself. Then the other thing that they found, you guys, was that the drivers, their mindset wasn't ready to be in that type of stress and structure of driving a vehicle for 200 miles an hour. And all that entails. So what they started doing was they began to implement what's called a rolling start. And they would bring the pace car back out, and the drivers would follow the pace car. And you can watch this on videos. You can see the pace car going, and then the drivers are zigging back and forth. They're trying to get their tires warmed up again. You can hear that they're revving their engines, and they're trying to get the motors going again. And obviously, the drivers are talking to their pit crew and their crew chief, and they're trying to get their head back in the game. When they started implementing this whole idea of pace car and going slow and then going a little faster and a little faster and a little faster, where eventually the pace car drops off and they're at a good speed where they start the race back and the green flag goes. When they started implementing that, they found that there were a lot less mistakes made, a lot less wrecks, as a result of the fact that people were just ready to get back into that race. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is helping to create that rolling start. So we aren't just going to have that jarring start from 0 to 200 when we get back to our normal on-site routine again. But before we get started, I do really want to get some Mariah and I actually talked about the importance of us just getting honest with a little bit of a gut check. So if you think about it, we just recently had this big crash and our heads were kind of just trying to wrap ourselves around this new normal of being at home. And now we're looking at this now transition to on-site work. So my question is, what kind of apprehensions do you have? Is there anything that you dread maybe about getting back into this new normal, getting back into the race, if you will? Anything that gives you anxiety? I'm just going to give us a couple of seconds to, if you want to answer in the chat, or if you want to open up your mic and share. Anything that makes you nervous, that you dread? Anybody want to share? I heard yesterday, and I can certainly understand this, but one of the people on the Zoom meeting yesterday shared that she was really anxious about sending her kids back to childcare. She's got one that's got a bit of a immune issue, and she's really worried about him going back into childcare. That's a very real concern, a very real apprehension that she has. Let's see.
Kendis, we've got a few comments in the chat. Michelle has shared that an apprehension would be that people will not wear masks and ignore the rules. Penny said that more people will get sick, more people may die. I can share personally. I'm a parent. I relate to the issues with, having to make the decision of when to send our children back into the daycare and school environment. Both my children are considered higher risk, kind of the low end of high risk, but they have asthma. So, personally, that for me is there's a lot of anxiety surrounding that decision that I'm going to have to make for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, all of these are extremely legitimate. You guys aren't making these up. Again, back to Charlotte Strickland's analogy of we're in this storm and each of us are in different boats. While they're different boats, there's still real concerns out there, and we're just trying to navigate. So certainly those things, one of the things that increases our anxiety is our feeling of loss of control with it. And so even identifying what makes us nervous and anxious about the transition back helps us to be able to, if we choose, to reframe that and grab some control over it. I will say that one of the things that's really helpful for us is to go back and remember a time when we have navigated transitions successfully before. One thing I can say is that the human race is extremely resilient. And we have navigated transitions before. And so while this is certainly a new one, it's not something that we are incapable of doing and even doing well. So while I don't want to ignore the fact that we have apprehensions, what about on a different plane, what about this idea? What are some silver linings that you've experienced as a result of pushing pause and everything kind of coming to a halt and you found yourself in a whole new normal? Anybody have any silver linings? I'll share one from my life. My daughter just got married. It'll be 2 weeks on Saturday. Just got married a couple of weeks ago. And because everything came to a screeching halt and her schooling went to online, she was able to come home and spend a lot of time with us. She was able to do school she could do school online, and then her job was already telecommuting. So I got extra time with her that I wouldn't have gotten had we not pushed pause on life. And so it certainly wasn't anything I would hope for us to have happen. But on the flip side, there was a silver lining. Anybody have a silver lining they want to share, maybe in the chats or unmuting?
Penny shared that she has more gratitude for what she has, which I think is a good one. I'll share personally for myself. I've really appreciated the extra time with my kids, although I probably complain a lot about how hard it is to work full-time from home with 2 little ones, 6 and younger. I do, this feels like just such a gift to have these extra months at home with them. And, as a family, we've always been an active family, but we have been very routine about going for what we call a family walk every afternoon after our workday is over. And it's gotten to be so routine, in fact, that our son, who's 4, who obviously doesn't wear a watch, he'll come to me at about 4:15 every day and say, "Mom, is it time for our walk yet?" So I love that. And, definitely I do see a lot of little positives that have come out of this.
Yeah. Gratitude. Great, Penny. Isn't that the truth? I mean, we just are like, I took a lot for granted. I'm hoping I don't do that again. And then that family time for sure. Anybody else? Some silver linings that you experienced?
We had Cynthia shared, she said, extra time to dig into some projects that had been pushed back, both at work and at home.
Nice.
And here are a few more. No more waking up to an alarm clock. Love that. I am enjoying the escape. This is from Gail. My summers are usually jam-packed with conferences and performances.
Wow.
I was only home 18 days last summer, so this has been a big change for her.
Wow.
Jacob shared, I just started at UCA and moved to Conway with my family. Being at home gave us a lot of time to go through all of our stuff and pack efficiently for the move. We didn't have to feel overly stressed about the move. And then Dylan says spending time with my newborn. It's awesome.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's been some real gifts in that great pause is what I keep calling it. It was push pause. And so we had some gifts. I love that you guys have discovered what those are. So as we move into thinking about those silver linings, I want you to now think about some of those things that you've done. Maybe, and Mariah, you shared one that was great, but something that you've done that's been a gift for maybe a healthy habit for you, or a new practice that you have actually created as a result of this. Like Mariah, I love your family walk time. I mean, that's incredible. What a great gift that's been given to you. For me personally, I have really started reading again. I had gotten kind of away from that and spent more time watching TV than I needed to. And I picked up those books again. I think, was it Gail that said you did the projects? But anything that you found that were gifts of healthy habits or new practices? Anybody want to share any of those? I'm seeing the chat, but I don't see the actual chat.
We have Penny sharing. She says, taking walking breaks throughout the day. I found myself in front of the computer way too long. I decided to take a walk break every 2 hours. That is awesome.
Perfect. Walk breaks. Isn't that the truth? Just not sitting so much. Anybody else? Some things that healthy habits or new practices that have been gifts to you that you want to consider taking and transitioning into the new on-site work routine?
Something that I've heard come up, people have mentioned to me is, you know, in many ways we've been forced to cook a lot more, especially at the beginning when everyone, you know, we weren't sure about how the virus was transmitted. People, you know, obviously restaurants were closed. And so really your only option was takeout or groceries. And so that has been a comment I've heard a lot about is, you know, switching to cooking healthier options at home.
Yeah. And with the cooking at home as well, you're saving money. Also a good gift. Yeah. Cool. Well, some of those gifts I want you to think about as we move into this next section of creating our strategy. I want you to think about what you want to keep that you implemented during the great pause, during the, you know, clean up off the track, what you want to take into your transition. So, all right, we're going to talk a little bit about the strategy. So just like in NASCAR, think about when, you know, the race is stopped and they're back in the pit and they're talking to the crew chief and they're saying, okay, what was going right? What was going wrong? How can we change? What can we do differently when we start the race up again? This will be that idea of what do we want to do to help create the new routine that we want and not just be sucked into a routine that we don't necessarily want. So it's the idea of creating a gentle rolling start with the things we want to keep as we move into the new on-site working routine. So let me get you to the next page. And Mariah, you had mentioned maybe a link for everybody, but I created a transition worksheet. And this is something that I would love for you guys to do so that as we move into the on-site transition, the work from home to on-site, that you and I are moving into this with that idea of a rolling start and that we're doing it with intentionality. Now, we didn't have any choice with the massive pileup that happened, the COVID crash. But we do have a choice with how we transition into the new routine of going back to work. And by not doing anything, by not thinking about it, we're actually choosing to have the transition go from 0 to 200 immediately with a lot of jarring effects to it. But by us being intentional, we can actually do that rolling start. And so we get ourselves geared up to actually have a very smooth transition. Now, as I share this worksheet, one of the things that I would suggest, if you've got kids of age that could do this, I would really suggest that you guys kind of come up with a strategy as a family, that you think about how you can transition into this more smoothly as a family, not just on your own. But I'll go through, let's see, Mariah, are they able to get a hold of the worksheet?
I just posted the link. Hopefully
Okay.
it works. I cannot exit my screen when I'm recording.
Oh, gotcha.
So would
Sorry,
someone
guys.
please click on that and let me know if that comes up. Somebody give me a thumbs up, hopefully. But anyway, if not, I will share it on email afterwards as well.
Yeah. If not, I mean, you can take a look at the picture. I'll quickly go over this. And if you guys have any questions, please unmute and stop me. Or if you've got suggestions to this, like I said at the beginning, this is all grace because we've never done this before. So even as I'm creating this, this isn't the end all be all, but it's something for us to do where we can be proactive and intentional with the transition.
The link is working, Kendis. So a lot of people have it up on their screen.
Alrighty, so I'm just going to walk through this, and again, stop me if you have questions or if I'm not making sense or whatever. But what's really important, especially like when I approach life coaching, what I find is people have great intentions, but until they sit down and do some work and get the thoughts out of their head and onto a kinesthetic approach of writing it down, then it just continues to be good intentions. But when you actually take the time to do the activities and to work through them, it becomes personalized to you, and you actually begin to formulate some habits toward what you just created and made as an intention in your life. Okay, so the first box on this is I'm just asking you guys to literally just kind of wrap your head around this. And you can do it in a number of different ways. You can describe it. So you could do paragraph form, just writing it out. You could list it. Maybe you're a boom, 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 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of person. Or for me, I am more visual, so I sketched it. But what you want to do is you just want to wrap your head around what you see as the change that's coming in the next few days, weeks, months for whomever, of transitioning from home to on-site work and what that looks like. So for me personally, I literally drew my little house and the habits that I had kind of incorporated. And then I've got an arrow to drawing it to UCA and the things that I associate with UCA, and just wrapping my head around going, okay, this transition's coming. What do I see it looking like? What do I see, maybe some challenges or some thoughts about it? So that's your first box. The next box, underneath that on the left, is what makes this change challenging? Now, this goes back to us talking about the apprehensions and the things that we dread and the things that create anxiety in us. List them out. This is that idea of just putting it on paper, getting it out of your head, putting it on paper, and then evaluating it and seeing that it's not as big of a monster as maybe you originally thought. When you start listing it, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm anxious about this. I own that. There's some apprehension. There's some unknowns. I own all that. But you know what? Because I can list these things, that gives me a little control over it, because it's not just this ominous thing out there that's nameless, faceless, and bigger than life. So as you do that, then the next box to the right is, how can you embrace this and grow? What can you control? So this is now actually reframing your apprehensions. So I'll give you an example in my own personal, when I did this worksheet. The first one was, I've really gotten out of my routine and my rhythms. I've got to be honest, and one of you guys said this was a silver lining, but I'm not setting that alarm like I used to. And I'm getting up and I'm kind of just rolling into the day and letting the day happen for me. Even though I talked about time management and I still utilize those things, I've not been as good as I had been. So those are some things that are challenging to me, but I reframed it to go, you know what? I work so much better with structure. I am somebody that really, I like who I am when I have routines and habits and structure and places I have to be, and accountability out there. So I reframed what's making me anxious to what is actually going to be a good thing for me. And that just helps you again to grab control, and not, the anxiety comes because we feel out of control. But when we start reframing things, we start going, you know what? I have control over how I choose to think about this, my attitude toward it, how I speak about it. I have control over these things. Then the next box, and again, stop me if you have any questions. The next box goes back to those habits or activities that we want to keep. So Mariah, on that box, you would list literally that family walk time. I want to keep that going. Penny, you would list the getting up and stretching and moving, and being really, very intentional about that. These are those habits, those activities that we're saying, okay, I began them during this strange pause, but I'm going to take them now with me. I'm intentionally choosing to take them into my new routine. List those. Maybe it's drinking water. Maybe it is more cooking at home. All those things, those don't have to end. You actually can take them with you. Then the next one is really the whole idea of this rolling start, you guys, so that it's not this jarring going from 0 to 200. And what you do here is, this is your strategy for transition. Now, what I want to suggest to you, and one of the reasons that Mariah chose this topic for this time, is so that you and I can put this into practice before we actually do start our on-site work. So what you would do on this strategy for transition, for example, you would say, and this, I've done this on such and such day, and I suggest it being at least a week out before you are assigned to go back to work at UCA. At least a week out on that date. So let's say you're assigned to go back on the 8th. So on June 1st, on that Monday, you state what you're going to do. You state how you're going to start getting back into that routine. So for instance, on June 1st, I will set my alarm and get up at the time that I got up before the COVID crash to get ready for work. Okay, and then the next one might be on June 2nd, I am going to get up at that time, and I'm going to begin my morning ritual, or whatever it is. I'm going to, get ready as if I'm going to work. Whatever those things look like, you start developing your strategy and you roll into your start. Now, one thing that you might want to do is you might want to include your family in this part. This is where you would say, okay, guys, so on Monday, we're all going to, get up at such and such time and have breakfast. And then we're going to build on that the next day and the next day and the next day, so that the following time, when you really do need to be at work at 8 o'clock, that means you're driving across town or you're commuting or whatever it looks like, it won't be as jarring because you already are in the rhythm and the routine of going to on-site work. Does that make sense? Are you guys following me on that?
Sounds good. And Kendis, we do need to wrap up. I'm looking at the time. It flies by, doesn't it, when you're having fun?
Okay. So basically, that is the strategy to it. You guys, on that link, you'll also see the resources. And these are all great. There's some family resources there for you to check out. And I will end with this thought. Louis L'Amour prophetically said it, but we've certainly experienced it. There will come a time when you believe everything is finished. That will be the beginning. You guys, I don't know what the future holds, but I can say, could it possibly be that because we had to take this great pause and we're starting up again, that this is going to be our beautiful beginning? Why couldn't it be? It's up to us. We get to choose. Thank you so much. Mariah, I'll give it back to you.
Yeah, that sounds great. So yes, I know we need to wrap up. Thank you, Kendis, so much. That I think we all needed to hear that. And I just want to end with a couple framing thoughts. It echoes what Kendis said, and it also echoes what was shared yesterday by Dr. Susan Sobel. If you haven't had a chance to listen to that webinar, it was really good. Just the most important takeaways, I think, are we need to know what we can control in this transition. It's really important to identify those things that we can control and make a plan for how we're going to navigate those things that we can control. And then really, really important is that if our anxiety has gotten to the point where we really need assistance in navigating those feelings, then I really encourage all faculty and staff to reach out if you need to the Employee Assistance Program. You can go to uca.edu/BeWell, and we have a tab on that website for Employee Assistance Program. It is free for faculty and staff and family members. So if you ever need to connect with a licensed mental health professional, they are there for you and there's no cost. So I just wanted to end with that. And I'm not going to share my slide today. I just put in the chat box the instructions for receiving your 5 lifestyle reward points. You can just email me at mbruner1@uca.edu. Subject line, framing our new normal, and I will send you a certificate of attendance for today, a copy of Kendis's slides, and also that really great worksheet. Kendis, thank you so much. I can send that along to you as well.
Thanks.
So with that, I'm going to officially end our session, but if you have any questions, feel free to hang out. I'm sure Kendis has a few moments to spare, but I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today.